What's the point of this summit? Because we know what they're not going to agree on. It appears that they're not going to agree on Russia, and they're not going to talk about Brexit really, or very formally at all. What is the point of this latest summit?
Well, I think a lot of the 28 leaders here are scratching their heads this morning, Steve, and wondering just that, especially when you consider that these talks went until 2 a.m. in the morning. And you might think it's not sending the best message for UK Prime Minister Theresa May, who had her first visit in Brussels at an EU leaders summit last night. A lot of talk, but not a lot of conclusion, something we're quite used to hearing from Brussels. But last night, the big topic was Russia and exactly what the EU's response should be toward Russia in light of increased concerns surrounding intervention in Syria and the attacks on Aleppo. As you touched on there, Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi has been touted as a leader when it comes to preventing new sanctions on Russia, but he was not alone. I have to say, we spoke to the Prime Minister of Luxembourg on his way into these talks, and he said as well, I don't really see the point of additional sanctions. Some questions on that were also cast by EU Parliament President Martin Schulz, and I asked him whether or not sanctions would be useful. He indicated that they were holding out hope that Vladimir Putin would respond to their new concerns. Also speaking at the conclusion of talks last night was EU Council President Donald Tusk, and he highlighted his concerns around Russia. Take a listen.
It is clear that Russia's strategy is to weaken the EU. We have a sober assessment of the reality and no illusions. Increasing tensions with Russia is not our aim. We are simply reacting to steps taken by Russia. Of course, the EU is always ready to engage in dialogue, but we will never compromise our values or principles.
So, Steve, to your question of what is the point of this meeting, Donald Tusk and his other EU leaders might say that it is to send a message to Russia to show that they are keeping all options on the table, including sanctions, if it gets to that point. Now, others were hoping that we may see some more discussion around Brexit. The Council President Donald Tusk making very clear there would be no such discussions around the table. We do know that Theresa May briefed what they called an information point on Brexit, but they are extremely hesitant to do anything that is considered proper negotiation at this stage until the Article 50 clause is triggered, which we know will now take place by March 2017. But that does leave a lot of room for uncertainty, especially at a time when investors are quite nervous over what we've seen as posturing towards a hard Brexit. I will say French President Francois Hollande did come in here once again stating that if the UK wants a hard Brexit, that negotiations will be quite tough. So the leaders, the 27 leaders that is, continue to put the ball in the UK's court. I have to say, there does seem to be some hope, some holding out here that perhaps the UK will change their mind, but that is not the message we are getting from Theresa May, who has made her first Brussels appearance as the Prime Minister in her first 100 days in that post.